Welcome back to the Whole Dancer YouTube channel. For those of you that are new, welcome. I'm Jess, the Whole Dancer founder. Today we're going to talk about what I think for many of you could be the missing macro. So macronutrients include carbohydrates, fat, and protein. As dancers, we are oftentimes very focused in on protein. I know that when I was dancing professionally and even in my pre-professional years, I got very obsessed with protein, all about the egg whites, protein powder, anything that I could get my hands on that was high in protein, I was consuming at a high rate. I was very aware of it, and I would look at things with high protein. I would eat protein bars. When I was eating meat, I would eat beef jerky and anything that was high in protein, and preferably also low in fat. And this is where the missing macro comes in. For most dancers, for many of us, we are a little bit fat phobic. So there's a common fear that eating dietary fat is going to make you fat, or it's going to make you hold on to fat. My story around this, my personal experience, was that, I really avoided fat as much as possible for a very long time. And then my second year dancing professionally, I must have read something that made me think I should be eating more fat because I started to consume more nuts. And that was the main change in my diet. And that year I very easily lost some weight that I had been holding on to previously. Still was going through a little bit of unhealthy patterns with food, so I still don't think that, I was necessarily at my peak or had reached my best level with my body and eating. But that one change in just incorporating more fats into my diet led to a positive change in my body and what I was going for with losing body fat and things like that. So I do think it can oftentimes be a missing piece for dancers. If you feel like you're avoiding it now, it's possible that you're not getting enough. So look at your meals. Check out your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, your snacks. If you feel like you're holding on to some body fat that you have had a hard time trying to get rid of, or you're just having a hard time turning it into muscle, or, seeing physical changes that you want, really look at your dietary fat and think about if maybe you're not getting enough. If you decide that perhaps you're not getting enough, how should you approach this? You don't want to go crazy from not eating much dietary fat to all of a sudden eating a ton of dietary fat, because, then maybe you will end up eating more food than you need and you will gain weight. We don't want to put you off from dietary fat and make you think that it really does just make you fat. So I would suggest incremental changes. Start with adding a little bit into breakfast and see how you feel. A nice reason to add it to breakfast is because then that meal might sustain you a little bit longer, and you might feel satisfied for longer and not need a snack so much in the morning or something like that. So it might impact the rest of your day. If you eat something like an egg for breakfast, well, then you're already getting the fat from the yolk. I do suggest incorporating, if you're an egg eater, some egg yolks into your diet. I think that makes a big impact on how satisfied you feel by your meals. If you prefer just the egg whites and you're eating that for protein source, you might include some avocado in your breakfast. Just a small amount. How much avocado should you eat? That's a question I've gotten before. I would say start with a quarter of an avocado. That might be different for some of you and what's needed to satisfy you and how much your body actually needs, but a quarter is a safe amount to start with and kind of gauge how it impacts your level of satisfaction with your meal. If you're eating something like oatmeal for dinner, easy addition for dietary fat there is going to be nuts or nut butter into the oatmeal, maybe some seeds. If you eat toast, maybe top it with some nut butter or avocado, have some avocado toast for breakfast. So there's a lot of different ways that you can incorporate fat into your breakfast, but whatever you're doing, you want to make sure that you're incorporating it in some way. So if you do that and you feel good, maybe that's all that you change. But if you do that and you feel good, but then you're kind of thinking, well, I sort of think I'm not so satisfied with other meals, with my lunch or my dinner, then you might try adding some dietary fat into those and seeing how that makes you feel. Again, like, don't go crazy and add tons and tons and tons of nuts and seeds and nut butter and avocado into your days when you've come from not having so much, but make those small additions. So if you've added a little bit of fat into breakfast, maybe you wait a couple of weeks of seeing how you feel with that addition, and then you add a little bit of dietary fat into your lunch as well and see how you feel with that. Another thing to consider with dietary fats is the quantity. So as we've said, you want to add it in incremental amounts, a small amount at a time. Don't go crazy, don't go overboard, don't all of a sudden add, 3 tablespoons of nut butter to breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But do it in small amounts. And when you're doing that, stay aware of serving sizes, how much of each of those foods you're consuming. And that's why I said maybe with avocado, start with 1/4 of an avocado. When it comes to nuts, you want to look at 1 or 2 tablespoons of nuts. With nuts and seeds and healthy fat sources of foods, it is important to stay aware of serving sizes and what amounts might work for you. And for some of you, you'll see that larger amounts are going to work than what a traditional serving size is. And for others, you'll see that maybe you want to stick to the lower end of a serving size, maybe even a little less than what's traditionally recommended. But you do want to stay aware of those things, just so that you're not going overboard with anything. Going overboard with any one food or any one macronutrient is never the best idea. It's a very useful tool and skill for dancers to have, to know what foods provide to you. So you don't have to get crazy and you don't need to count calories, but it's nice to be able to say, oh, well, when I eat salmon, that's a good source of both healthy fat and protein. With salmon, I'm getting omega-3s as well, which are good for brain health and reduction of inflammation and all of that good stuff. If you don't know much about the food that you eat, start to investigate it. I do love to encourage you all to read about food and read about nutrition, and my overarching tip for every single dancer, because of the way you use your body and because it is so integral a part of your life and perhaps your career, you should be an expert on your body. You should know exactly the best way that your body runs. And in order to do that for yourself, you need to do the reading, you need to do the experimentation with your food. And if it's something that you're having a hard time taking grasp of alone, then employ outside help. I work with dancers in this sort of thing. It's one of my favorite things to do, is to help you all figure out the best way to fuel yourselves. But there's other experts out there as well who could also help. So do what you need to do to make it happen. If you don't think that you want to be, doing all the reading and research and all of that yourself, then seek out the person who's going to help you figure out how your body works best at its highest level, and start to experiment with things until you find the best way of eating for you. So I'm curious if you all have any fat phobias, or if you have tried incorporating more dietary fats and what the outcome was. Definitely share in the comments if you've had any experiences that you'd like to share with us. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're looking for more from The Whole Dancer, head over to thewholedancer.com and see what we've got going on there.